I have reviewed the PNY 5070 Slim. PNY sent that over to me. It was a really cool 2-slot variant of the 5070. It was interesting. So I ended up buying the 5080 Slim from PNY. What is it? We'll just jump right into this review real quick, but basically it's a 2-slot. So you can see there just how incredibly thin it is. A true 2-slot GPU. So you're getting a RTX 5080 that only takes up 2 slots. Some cases really do like narrow GPUs with their like a small form factor, super small form factor. They like narrow case, they like 2-slot GPUs because otherwise you'd end up riding either physically touching the side of the case or getting so close that you'd end up being very, very close and you get resonance, like kind of a whirring sound. This one's designed to get rid of that. It is an interesting design. I have a couple other 5080s we'll test in this video here, but basically what you're getting here may not show up well on camera, but I'll break these down, but you can see, the MSI here is much taller, much taller. This is a relatively small 5080 as well. The PNY actually does, though, interestingly, gain some height this way. As you can see here, it's a little bit taller that way. And what happens here is you end up with, as you can see there, bigger fans. So there's only 2 of them, but they're bigger. And that's going to have a big impact on a couple different things here. So let's jump into the review and I'll compare them. Okay, so here is the card. Very neat. I am actually in the process of building a couple of PCs, so my desk is a little messy, but that's kind of the good part because I can actually show it off. So here we go. That's the GPU there, the 5080 Slim. I have 2 other 5080s on my person right now. They're both smaller 5080s. 5080s can be actually quite large, but you can get them down. These are some of the slimmer ones you can get. They're both MSI, a Ventus and a Shadow. These are some of the slimmer ones you can get easily, for sure. And then, of course, I do have the 5070. The 5070 Ti, it exists, but it's really hard to find right now. I just haven't seen it on sale. The 5070 I've already done a review of, this one here, and PNY actually sent me that one. The 5080 here, this is the one I bought. So it's interesting just how these are designed. So yeah, it's much thinner this way, especially for a thin type case. Length, they're pretty close. Technically, the Shadow is ever so slightly longer. Let's bring out the Ventus. Ventus is basically the same as the Shadow. There's no real difference there, but you do gain some height there on this here. So, they have to have some way of maintaining good mass without completely compromising the GPU. So if they were to have this thing thinner this way and then cut it down that way, you would just technically have less cooling. So you potentially have problems there. And of course it's a 2-fan that way too. One of the nice things, we'll see when we test it, I haven't tested it yet, but smaller fans make more noise because they have to spin faster to move the same amount of air. Larger fans, depending on if they're similar in design at least, don't have to spin quite as fast, so they're quieter. That's why if you have case fans that are 120 and then you have case fans that are 140, if they're basically the same type of design, the 140s typically move the same amount of air, but they just spin way slower to get there, so they're quieter. You can see that there. But then in thickness, of course, there's quite a bit of a difference. So if we set up the back plate there, you can see potentially on camera just how much more height there is there. Right? It's basically like a centimeter taller. It has a 2-slot bracket here, but this sticks out quite a bit. So depending on the case you're working with, I mean, a lot of cases these days, they don't care about width, but there are a lot of cases, especially if you're going for like a really small form factor build, it does care. And so this can potentially put you, this is not a 2-slot bracket, but it's not a 2-slot GPU. It sticks out quite a bit over top of that. Good. That looks fine. That releases the GPU from the cooling, the PCB from the cooling. Okay, so there we go. Looks nice inside. Let's get a nice shot of that. Very easy to get into it, to be honest. Just take a few screws. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heat pipe on the back plate there. On the back side of the GPU there. 1, 2, 3 on this side over here. This one kind of curls around, but there's 3 over here. So 3 and 6. So there's going to be a lot of air obviously coming out of this one here. Very nice. I mean, they're about 1 right now, but they might be slightly compressed. So I'm going to say those are probably 1.5 millimeter pads, to be honest. And then they're just ever so slightly squished down. You can see here, this is a paste, not a PTM. So there's a paste on there. I've already done some testing with paste. I'm going to put PTM on the GPU because that's what I do. That's my thing. I've been doing it before like anybody, but I'm going to put PTM on it, obviously. But I've already done a bunch of tests with paste, with the stock paste, to just see the difference. Wouldn't make the biggest difference, but it's nice to see there. Obviously, you have your VRAM there. It's very nice. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So the backplate, it's nice that it has a metal backplate, more for structure, but there's no VRAM back there or anything like that. So, okay, so here we are. It's inside the system, the MSI variant of the 5080. This is a big, large test system here. We'll just give it kind of a best case scenario. Like, this is certainly not a slim system. You can put a much bigger GPU in here, but we'll just put it in here kind of as a best case scenario, put it that way. So these two fans here are feeding up. This one's just basically going into the CPU, so that gets its own kind of cool air. This one feeds the GPU. That's an exhaust. So it's getting a nice fresh supply of cool air there, basically coming from the back of the case. It's the way this works, out of the bottom here. And it gets its own exhaust. The CPU is not an intake, so it's not bringing in any hot air from the CPU. CPU is exhausting out. So it's essentially isolated. It's getting whatever cold air it wants. It's the only real generator of heat inside of this system. So that's good. We'll check noise and thermals. Of course, there are smaller cases we can pop it into as well. But this is going to be our first test bench for noise and thermals here. We'll get some idle noise. It is a reasonably cool and quiet case. I have tuned the fans to be quiet. It's very reflective. It's a brand new system I just built. But I have tuned the fans to be very quiet on the fan, CPU, and everything, just to keep that noise down. There you are. So idling quite quiet, quite cool. So 33 and 44. GPU power is idling at about 20. It's fine. Maybe. Yeah, we'll do 4K. So we'll go like that there. This way we can have this open and look at stuff while we're going. So we'll go like that. Now this will give us GPU temps in that, but I like to always have a second tool open. Like so. This will just make sure that the CPU is not getting hit too hard. Like if we can come up here, you can see the CPU is very isolated from this test. Because this is not a system test. I don't care what the CPU is doing, I just want it to work. This is a GPU test, so the CPU is not being hit very hard here. That's one of the nice things about FurMark. It is very GPU intensive. So probably better than doing a game, because the CPU you pick and the cooler you pick and the case you pick is going to be very, a confounding variable. So, okay, so the fan, I can just hear the fan kicked up. Take those temperatures, and obviously we're pulling, significantly higher watts, 360 watts or so. 150 FPS up here. They should be margin of error performance difference, to be honest. The clocks will be similar to that, whatever. We'll just let this run for a minute. So I'll come back in maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and we'll just check the noise and thermals after it runs for a bit. All right, it's been a couple minutes. Nothing's going to change now. So this GPU, it looks like in this giant case, I mean, this is best case scenario. These are relatively small GPUs that can go in nice small cases, obviously. But we can see here, 78 degrees, 74 degrees on DRAM. And that works the same as hardware info, so that's good. Pulling full watts consistently. There's no wattage issues there. RPM, 2700, 2700. 153. Now it is pretty loud. We'll put it that way. It is pretty loud. 3 small fans. It has no thermal issues though, like MSI Ventus. I've seen people say negative things about the Ventus, but they're not bad GPUs. They're just lower thermal mass, so they're not going to be as quiet, obviously. So let's check the inside for noise. Once it's open, it's going to be very loud. But again, the system fans are not running any hotter. I don't have them tuned to that. They're tuned to the CPU. The CPU is not hot. Yeah, so not bad. I mean, if the system was right beside you and had an open style case with a mesh panel, you definitely hear it under full light like this. It would be very obvious. Inside's looking fine. No weird hotspots on the MSI at all. Looks pretty standard. 12 volt high power being the hottest spot, but there's just no weirdness on it. It's just a pretty standard looking GPU. You see the case in general runs nice and cool, so. Okay, so now we have the PNY in. Interesting. Very interesting looking GPU. It's much thinner that way, but it ends up being larger that way. In a big case like this, interestingly, it actually looks more in place. It's also very stealthy with that dark look. I like it. Yeah, very cool. All right, let's check the idle noise. Check the idle noise. It seems to be about the same. Yeah, it's incredibly quiet, obviously. Get a quick listen. Again, there's the other fans going in to kind of contaminate the sound, but we'll just get an idea anyways. It almost seems quieter with this off. I guess there's like a resonance chamber thing with the glass. I don't think there's any noise coming out of that. Now, just so you know, this is not my first time testing this. I've tested it in a couple other systems, and just kind of like dabbled with it on like an open bench, if you know what I mean. Like I literally just had a motherboard lying flat, and I plopped it in there. And I'll just give, because I didn't measure it at the time, like video-wise, but I'll just give you my, I don't know, my anecdote. I'll give you my anecdotal story. It has a lower frequency, and it's generally quieter than the ones with the smaller fans. And that makes sense. Keep this up here again so that we can see if there's any discrepancies. The other one did start to spin up faster sooner. Right now, acoustically, there's no change. I'll tell you when I can hear a difference. All right, it's been a couple minutes. I don't think it's going to get any noisier than that. It's a much quieter GPU. It is way quieter under load. And part of that is, I mean, the other one has 3 fans, but 3 small fans. This has 2 big fans. If you know anything about the fans, larger fans, depending on how they're designed, they're not all equal. Let's just say they're the same physical design. Larger fans are going to have to spin less fast to move the same amount of air as a smaller fan. So as a result, they spin slower to move the same amount of air. But if they're spinning fast, then they actually move more air. So take what you will from that. And you can see here it's running cool, right? Same watts. Approximately. Actually, it might be slightly higher, but basically the same watts, right? It's the same GPU. And you can see here 68 and 72. So it is actually running cooler. So it's quieter and cooler. So that's one of the interesting things. And that's why I decided to kind of, I mean, I bought this to do a review, but I was like, this is actually going to make a cool video because the PNY here, I mean, it's thinner. It's a true 2-slot. So it's going to be better in cases that require that to be a 2-slot. It does come a little bit bigger this way, but as a result of it being bigger that way, despite the fact that it's thinner, it has bigger fans. Those bigger fans keep the GPU cooler and it runs quieter. Yeah, nothing weird here. 12 volt high power cool. The chips there are exposed, but it's not that hot. Not a big deal. Yeah, nothing weird about this one. No weird hotspots. Time jump, messy disk. This is a really cool case that I got. It's a Johnsbow T9. Lovely little ITX case, very small ITX case, and it's perfect. I have the 5080 in here. This has like been a while. I've been playing around with it, and you can see here it works amazing. There it is inside. My desk is a disaster because I built multiple computers in the past couple of days. But this thing is tiny. So we're going to open this up here. And look at that. It's literally perfect. Look at that. It fits perfectly. So if you get this T9, this is an amazing case. I really like it. Super easy to build in, very robust, a little expensive, but It's SFF, that's how it is. This fits perfectly in there. There's a little bit of room, like a few millimeters, but it's easy to get in. It fits perfectly in there, and because it's taller this way, no problems there. Look at that. It just looks fantastic. So that's really nice. There's also the nice thing about this because it's slim, right? So this motherboard here, let's actually flip around because it's not a case review, but it's relevant here. So we'll take that side off there, and I'm going to hold it like this. So you can see here, this is very flush to that. This is a very big low profile cooler. It's a thermal, right? Very big low profile cooler. To be honest, it's pretty big. This motherboard here can be shifted left or right. Right? You can see that. It's actually an adjustable motherboard tray, excuse me. So if you put the motherboard tray that way, yeah, you can put on a thicker GPU for sure, but then you have to get a smaller cooler. And you're going to get to the point where you're actually going to be compromising the cooling performance by putting on a really low profile cooler. This one here is able to keep the 9800 X3D that I have in here at very good temperatures, very, very good temperatures. So that's the nice thing. And that's relevant to this GPU, because this GPU is slim, so I'm able to bring the motherboard tray. It's actually the default. Leave it in its default position and bring it that way. Whereas if you get a thicker, like the MSI 2.5 inch, I mean, that the 2.5 slot, that's going to be way bigger. Like it would actually be right touching the side here. You might be able to get in, but you'd actually be like getting crazy resonance. So you'd have to bring this in that way, which would then compromise your cooler. There's just enough clearance in there where it's not causing any problems. So that's really nice. And not only that, there's actually some room to spare. So you can see there, right, I have basically around a half slot. So I don't have these fans basically touching this metal here. And if it gets too close on most cases, you'll end up with like a resonance noise where you get like a, because this is right at the metal it's sucking through. Now this does have pretty big ventilation holes, speed holes, that's the thing. But it does also come with a magnetic dust filter. So we'll put in this dust filter here. I think that's the wrong one, but okay. So I put that in there. That's a dust filter. We'll just keep a little bit of dust out of the GPU. Now, because this has small porous holes, you should watch some Gamers Nexus stuff. They really cover this quite well. Small little holes. If the GPU is right against that, you can actually get like a super annoying sound. And I've noticed that on lots of cases. You don't get that here, so when you slide that in there, it doesn't create an annoying sound because there's some room there. So there's no resonance sound here. This game, you'll see I've been running a game for half an hour, maybe something like that. I'm not exactly sure. So Pragmata, it has nothing to do with the performance. I mean, yeah, it's going to perform well. But what we're doing here is I want to show you, let's get like a dark background. There we go. Maybe, let's just go like that. So yeah, so there we can go. We can see what's going on. So the CPU temperature, I mean, obviously it's running well. Remember how I said, this allowed, because this is a slim GPU, the CPU is even relevant here because it's a slim GPU. It allows me to put on a thicker CPU cooler, which allows that CPU to run at 60 degrees. So that's wonderful. Very nice. We can see here, I mean, whatever, that's fine. Frame rate's obviously good. It's good performance and all that kind of stuff. But the GPU here, full usage, it's pulling around 300 watts or so, and it's only sitting at 65 degrees. It's fantastic, right? It's really, really, really good. The fact that it's able to do that, and it's quiet. Right, it's quiet. It'll always pick up louder on camera because the microphone will almost isolate that sound. But to me, it's very quiet, which is quite nice. So we're actually going to do a little bit of fur mark here, and we'll just finish out the video. I mean, that's the GPU, right? GPU good. Review done. GPU good, right? So we'll just come in here and we'll just go do a little 4K run. We'll do a full 4K benchmark over here just to check the temperatures. And let that run, and we'll come back in a moment and see how it finishes. So the benchmark is done. I mean, obviously it's doing well. We can just see there, look at those temperatures. 69 degrees on the GPU, VRAM, 70, it bounces around, 75, we'll just say average, because it goes up and down by 2. So very, very, very good performance. Under 70 degrees on the GPU core, despite the fact that it's in a small case. And, I mean, because there's lots of room, right? So, I mean, it's a good case, too. It's not a case review, but it's a good case. Okay, so what do I think about them? I have no problems with the Ventus. It's great. The shadow is also fine. I have no problems with the shadow. It is pretty plasticky and can be a little bit noisier, but generally it's fine. The Ventus is good. It's one of the most budget 5080s, and it works just fine. I've used many of these products from MSI. It works just fine. The PNY has some obvious advantages. It does cost a little bit more, but I actually saw it on Amazon for $200 off, which brings it in line with like every other 5080 in a terrible market too. So it was actually very close to MSRP. It was 100 over MSRP, which is the price of a 5080 that's not an FE anyways. So you can actually get these at like standard pricing we had like a year ago. Anyways, so what do we have here that's interesting? We do have it wider this way, right? So it's a little bit wider that way. But as a result, you get bigger fans, and only 2 of them. So there's 2 fans here. There's less fans spinning. They are physically larger in diameter, which means that they're going to have to spin. Doesn't always, but in this case, it means they're not going to have to spin quite as hard to move the same amount of air. If they do spin faster, then they move more air. So as a result, they run quieter. They also run cooler. You can kind of get both in this case, which is sweet. And despite that, it is possible of being in true 2-slot. I've had the FE as well. The FE is okay, but it did run very hot. This runs cooler than the FE. It also runs cooler than some of the 3-fan options. So that's the PNY there, the 5080. It's great. I mean, it's exactly what it advertises to be, a 2-slot GPU, 2-fan. It runs quieter and cooler than other GPU 5080s in this kind of price category. This runs actually quite cool and very quiet. So there you go. That's the PNY 5080. It's a great product.